The river was already swallowing her when the dog broke free, claws skidding across ice, a low, desperate sound tearing out of his chest, as if he understood the weight of a life slipping away. Snow fell hard, sirens smeared red and blue across the frozen dusk, and a single father stood helpless on the bank with the kind of fear that has no place to hide. The current dragged the officer under again, the cold stealing her strength, and in that breathless second, when hope thins to a thread, the dog leapt without hesitation. If you believe that kindness still exists, that second chances arrive in the most unexpected forms, pause here and show your support. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Grandma Dearie, because this story was born from belief when belief felt impossible. He had not planned to be there that night. Life had been narrowing around him for years, shrinking to a small apartment, a growing boy who asked questions he struggled to answer, and a loyal dog who slept by the door as if guarding a future he could sense but not see. The river cut through the edge of town like a warning, swollen and black under the storm. The officer had arrived first to a call about a stranded vehicle, and the ice gave way beneath her boots. The shock of the water stole her breath, the weight of her gear pulled her down, and the river claimed her with a force that felt final. On the bank, the single dad felt old guilt rise in him, the kind that whispers you never do enough, that you're always late to save what matters. He had lost his wife years earlier to an accident that left no room for goodbye, and since then, fear had lived quietly in his bones. Tonight, fear roared. The dog did not wait for permission. He had been rescued once himself, found starving behind a closed factory, ribs like a map of all the days no one came. The man had taken him in because he recognized that look of abandonment, because some broken things fit together and become strong. Now the dog moved with a purpose sharper than any command, diving into the river with a courage that seemed to split the storm open. The water shocked him, burned his lungs, but instinct and loyalty carried him forward. He found the officer's sleeve between his teeth, the fabric heavy with ice and despair, and he pulled, fighting the current inch by inch. On the bank, the father dropped to his knees, hands numb, voice lost to the wind, knowing that if the dog failed, something inside him would fail forever. When they dragged the officer free, the world seemed to hold its breath. Snow soaked her hair, her face pale and still, the river's mark written all over her. Hands worked quickly, jackets were stripped and wrapped, breath was coaxed back into a body that had nearly been taken. The dog collapsed beside her, chest heaving, eyes never leaving her face as if waiting for a sign that the promise he had made to the night was kept. The father pressed his forehead into the snow and felt tears freeze on his lashes, gratitude and terror tangling so tight they felt like one thing. In that moment, something shifted. The past did not disappear, but it loosened its grip. News spread the way stories do when they carry hope. The single dad had always lived quietly, fixing what he could, staying out of the way, believing survival was the same as living. Now people stopped him on the street, not to stare, but to thank him, to kneel and scratch the dog's ears with reverence. The officer recovered slowly, her body mending in careful stages, her resolve hardened by the memory of a river that tried to end her watch. She returned to duty with a humility that surprised her colleagues, carrying the knowledge that bravery wears many shapes, including fur and 4 legs, including a man who learned to trust the world again. But the true change came at home. The boy listened why, died as the story was retold, seeing his father not as the tired figure who worried over bills, but as someone who stood in the storm and did not run. The dog slept deeper, dreaming the kind of dreams that come after purpose is fulfilled. The father began to speak more openly about loss, about fear, about the courage it takes to stay soft after life has tried to harden you. He volunteered with river cleanups, with shelters, with anyone who needed an extra set of hands, because the night taught him that waiting for the right moment is a luxury no one has. The officer visited one afternoon when the snow had melted and the river ran gentler, carrying with it the reflection of a calmer sky. She brought a simple medal for the dog and a letter she had written during recovery, words she needed to give away to breathe freely again. She thanked the father not just for the rescue, but for raising a heart, human and canine, that refused to look away. The town gathered not for headlines, but for connection, standing shoulder to shoulder in a quiet celebration that felt like healing. In the distance, the river kept moving, as rivers do, but it no longer felt like an enemy. As time passed, the story did not fade. It rooted itself in the small choices people made afterward, holding doors, stopping to help, believing that even on the coldest nights, something warm can rise up and save us. The single dad learned that his life was not defined by what he lost, but by what he chose to protect. The officer learned that strength is not diminished by needing help, and the dog, who had once been forgotten, became a reminder that love given freely can change the course of many lives. If this story has settled into your chest, if it reminds you of a moment when kindness surprised you, or when a second chance arrived soaked and shaking but alive, please take a moment near the end to show your support. Like, share, and subscribe to Grandma Dearie, because stories like this live longer when we carry them together. And before the final moment fades, leave a comment telling us where you believe courage truly comes from. Sometimes it looks like a leap into cold water, sometimes like a hand held steady on a snowy bank, and sometimes like the quiet decision to hope again.